bloc. Now, the left's double standards have been exposed for all to see in the United States, where they are, of course, in an immigration crisis. More than 2 million migrants, as we said the other week, have been arrested over the past year for illegally crossing the southern border from Mexico. That's a new record. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis turned the issue on its head this week when he sent just 50 Venezuelan migrants to the ritzy, lefty island of Martha's Vineyard way up in Massachusetts. Instead of welcoming them with open arms, as their years of virtue signalling might have suggested, these woke elites kicked up a stink, the army was called in, and the migrants have been sent packing to a nearby army base. I caught up with Kristen Tate, columnist for The Hill, earlier, and I asked if this episode exposed the hypocrisy of the Liberal left.
This is liberal NIMBYism at its finest. I was in Martha's Vineyard this summer for a couple of weeks, and every single house, or nearly every single house, has these lawn signs in the front that say, "In this house, we believe no human is illegal." They love virtue signaling about, how much they love migrants. They get 50 migrants sent to them on a plane by Ron DeSantis, and the residents there absolutely hit the roof. And within 48 hours, they called the army in to take these migrants off of their island, to basically deport them to an army base. I mean, it's laughable. 50 migrants is nothing. For reference, we get 150 times that showing up in Texas every single day, and our border towns here are just supposed to deal with it. But then, you fly these migrants up to Martha's Vineyard, one of the richest places and most beautiful places, by the way, in the United States, and you have liberals saying it's cruel and inhumane and there's nowhere to put them. Guess what? There are tons of empty bedrooms there. It's off season. Why don't we just put all these migrants up in the guest rooms of all of these empty vacation homes or all of the empty hotels? I mean, these people who live up there say they love the migrants. Take them in. Put your money where your mouth is. But clearly, it's all about virtue signaling and hypocrisy for these liberals.
As you say, Martha's Vineyard, very wealthy and very beautiful. It's also very Democrat, very liberal left. It's where the Obamas hang out. It's where the Kennedys, of course, have always spent their summers. So it's a political point well made about a real problem that people have to deal with in the southern states along that Mexican border. But of course, this is not just an issue for how the politicians deal with it and how the people in Martha's Vineyard deal with it. It's also about how the media deals with it. And this is something that Ron DeSantis has highlighted. Have a look.
There were more Acela corporate journalists in Martha's Vineyard today than have ever gone down to the southern border to look what's going on. Why don't you go down there and look what some of those communities have to deal with every day?
Yeah, there you go. He's saying that journalists should get down there and have a look. Go to your home state, Kristen. Go to Texas and have a look at what the issues are.
That's exactly right. They don't care at all about border towns, and not just border towns, but really all of Texas and border states being completely changed by this open border problem. I mean, here in Houston, we have a huge crime problem. We talked about this last week. Even our schools and our emergency rooms are totally full of illegal immigrants, to the point where American citizens have to wait to be seen by doctors at our hospitals. The drug problem is out of control. And this is just Houston. Houston's not a border city. If you actually go down to the real border towns like Del Rio or McAllen, which are right on the border, the crime is just terrifying down there. These places are absorbing hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, and a lot of these people are getting caught by Border Patrol agents, but a lot aren't getting caught and are coming in with drugs and infiltrating the communities down here. So I don't know why the media doesn't care about these places. They only care about the liberal enclaves on the coasts where their friends and connected people with money live. But I love this stunt by Ron DeSantis. It was a political stunt. I mean, it was only 50 migrants, but he should keep doing it. Keep those migrants coming, because this is the only way, Chris, that we are actually going to be able to close this border with a Democrat liberal administration, is to bring the problem directly to the doorsteps of these liberals that have promoted open border policies for years now that are really bringing destruction to so many communities in this country.
Well, this is a domestic issue where obviously President Joe Biden is failing. Now, he's given an extensive interview in the last few days, and one of the issues there was an overseas issue, a foreign policy issue, probably the preeminent one in the world at the moment, and that is what's happening with China and Taiwan. And the president was again strident when it came to Taiwan. Have a look.
So unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
Yeah, so much for strategic ambiguity. Do you think, Kristen, that the president is deliberately talking tough on Taiwan, or has he kind of lost his notes about that strategic ambiguity?
Of course, it's not strategic. The White House actually had to walk that back directly after the interview. This president doesn't even know what time it is. I mean, this guy is not in control of his mental facilities, and it's becoming a real problem and national security threat for this country. With regards to Taiwan, I mean, yes, we do need some ambiguity in terms of our strategy there, but they're really not doing enough to defend themselves against the rapid threat of China. I mean, they're only spending 2% of their own GDP on defense. So this is a real problem that the United States needs to think hard about with our allies and be strategic about. And when we have this president who just keeps putting his foot in his mouth over and over and over, it just really puts roadblocks up to that kind of progress. And again, it's a national security threat. It's quite terrifying.
Look, in that same interview, the president, even though we haven't had the midterm elections yet, people are talking about whether he'll run for a second term. This, to me, is an inane debate. Let's have a look at what the president said.
My intention, as I said to begin with, is that I would run again. But it's just an intention. But is it a firm decision that I run again? That remains to be seen.
Now, Kristen, the reason I say this is an inane debate is because it's obvious he's not intending to run a second time. He can't, he wouldn't, he won't run for a second term. The problem is he just can't say that, because as soon as he says that, he's a lame duck for the next 2 and a bit years.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard an answer like that from a sitting president. It's obvious he's not going to run again. The entire Democratic Party here in the U.S. wants him gone. This guy's totally ineffective. The only reason he won in 2020 is because he used COVID as an excuse to stay in his basement during the entire election cycle. But when you get this guy in front of people, he cannot deliver a speech. He has dementia, it seems like, at certain points. I mean, he's just not aging well, and he doesn't have the physical or mental ability to do this again and run for president. So it's obvious he's not running again. The Democrats' problem, though, is who will they put up in his place? Who are they going to run? And there really is not a deep bench of good, solid Democrats ready to step up and fill that void. Kamala Harris is a dud. Pete Buttigieg has been named as a potential running, as a potential Democratic nominee, but I just don't think he has enough experience or charisma. We've got Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. I guess he's a possibility, although he's not that likable. So yeah, the Democrats want Joe Biden gone, but they really don't have any strong candidates to replace him. So it'll be interesting to see who they encourage to get in the ring.
We might take up some of those issues next week, Kristen, because what's happening in California doesn't really recommend Gavin Newsom, but we'll get onto those issues another time. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much, Chris.